Okay, hello friends. Okay, can I get a quick yeses from you people if you're able to hear me? All right, thank you, great. Okay, so good evening, and the topic that we're going to discuss is India and the World One. And in this topic, we'll be talking about India's relationships or India's foreign policy with neighboring countries and some other important countries in the world, right? So basically, the topic I would say is on India's foreign policy towards different nations in the world. So if we talk about India's foreign policy, we need to understand that it can be broadly divided into two parts, that is pre-1991 and post-1991. I hope you people understand the importance of when we say 1991. Can you quickly write down what happened in 1991 quickly? In just one word. Okay, I'm getting an answer from Nikhil. He's saying Russia. But more importantly, more than Russia, it was LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So I'm basically talking about the economic scenario. So we can write in a couple of pointers very quickly about pre-1991, right? What was India's situation pre-1991? So write on point number one. Uh, India's economy was more socialist. Socialist in the sense it was more closed. So I'm repeating, pre-1991, what were the guiding principles or what were the factors contributing to the foreign policy? So number one, it was India's economy being a socialist economy. Number two, India was one of the members of NAM or one of the founding members of NAM. I hope you know what NAM. NAM is non-alignment movement. Non-aligned movement, in fact. Non-aligned movement actually means that India did not. Yes, Nitesh, absolutely. India chose not to be on the sides of the capitalist or the communist blocs. So obviously in this particular session, I really cannot talk about the communist or capitalist blocs. If you're interested in it, you can read more on this, right? So India chose not to be a party of the Cold War, basically. And number three, India ultimately became friends with USSR. That was our biggest of the friends, the closest of the friends we had pre-1991, USSR. Okay. And number four, another factor that became, you can say, a reason why our foreign policy was like that was India chose not to sign CTBT and NPT. CTBT means Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, that is CTBT, and NPT means Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Okay, so four factors. I'm repeating. Number one, India's economy was socialist. Number two, we were a part of NAM. That means we were not in a party in the Cold War. Number three, we were friends with USSR. And number four, we refused to sign CTBT and NPT. Quick yeses if you're able to understand the pointers I'm talking about. Okay, cool. Okay, so the first country I'm picking up right now is India and the US. Let's start from India-US relationships or India's foreign policy towards US. Now, first thing we need to understand is that India and US were not very good friends, right? We have started improving our relationships here. Yeah, I'm talking about before 1991. Before 1991, in fact, before 2000, in fact, around the year 2000 only, till that particular point of time, we were not very good friends. We were kind of, I won't say enemies also, but we were not very good friends. And the reasons were the same that I've just talked about. India was a socialist economy and the US has been a capitalist economy. So when you're a socialist economy, obviously you're closed, you're not doing business, right? And US being a capitalist economy, so obviously we could not become friends on that particular front. Then number two, we supported NAM. So that means we are ignoring USA. Number three, we became friends with USSR, and USSR was a very huge enemy, the biggest enemy of USA. So obviously that also did not contribute much to the better relationships. And the number next was we refused to sign CTBT and NPT, and US was after a life to sign both the treaties. So in short, I'm going to talk about all these four reasons contributed towards India not becoming very good friends with USA. And one other very important point, we were not friends, was Pakistan, because Pakistan and US have been very good friends, and obviously Pakistan and India have been enemies. So US has been supporting Pakistan all these years. In fact, if you talk about the 71 war with Pakistan, US threatened India with consequences. In fact, US sent its nuclear warships to Bay of Bengal, threatening India. So all these factors contributed towards a very bad relationship with the US. Nitesh, you're writing 7th Fleet. I'm not really sure about... Yes, then Russia supported us. You're absolutely right, Nikhil. I just know that it was a nuclear warship. I really don't know the name of the fleet you guys are writing. Okay. Now, what we can talk about is post-1991 with USA. Are you guys listening to the story or you're writing? Can you just quickly answer? Are you listening or writing? Okay, cool. So depends on what you're comfortable with. So I'll suggest you keep on doing the both, right? I mean, listening and writing. Okay, so let's talk about post-1991. Post-1991, in fact, the situation did not change post-1991 immediately. It actually changed after Atal Bihari Vajpayee tested nuclear weapons. That was the year 1999 or 1998, somewhere there. We tested our nuclear weapons, and it is termed as Pokhran 2. Pokhran, yes, absolutely, Nitesh. It is P-O-K-H-R-A-N, Pokhran. It's a name of a place in Rajasthan where we actually test our nuclear weapons. Now, what particular factor played its role here is the one I'm talking about, CTBT and NPT. Now, when US was after a life to, sign CTBT and NPT, and we are refusing both, right? We are not signing both, and under those circumstances, we are testing a nuclear weapons. So obviously, USA was not very happy about the entire situation, and in fact, it was actually infuriated, and it imposed economic sanctions on us. Do you think there was any effect of imposing economic sanctions on India at that particular point of time, around the year 1999? Can I get a quick yeses or nos? I'm repeating my question. After we tested nuclear weapons, US imposed economic sanctions on us. Economic sanctions would mean putting restrictions on trade, right? Okay, there's a person, Rochestman, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Rochestman, since you mentioned that we were more socialist, you're saying, after 1991, we started becoming more capitalist because we opened up the economy. So, 1999, we were more of a non-socialist economy, we opened up, and US realized that this is not a right time to isolate India economically. Because we can very well understand if we, know about this particular thing, that US economy is almost saturated and they need markets. So somebody in the US administration must have thought that this is not a good time to isolate India. This is a good time to engage with India. And that was the year when things started changing between India and US. So if you're able to understand this particular thing, so let's quickly write down 3 phases of India-US relationships in the present millennium, in the present century, that have led to an improved relationship. Right. So let's write down phase number 1. That was between Vajpayee and Bill Clinton. So Vajpayee tested nuclear weapons, Bill Clinton imposed economic sanctions, but then he quickly removed them. And after a very long time, a US president visited India. That was somewhere in 2000. when after a very, very long time, US President visited India, and that was the starting of a good relationship. He visited Taj Mahal, he saw India, there was a lot of international media coverage, people talked about it, but nothing concrete came out of it. Second, if you talk about the second phase was between Manmohan Singh and George Bush. Anybody even tell me about what really happened between the two and how the relationship became more, I would say intimate or closer as such. So anybody has an idea about this? Yes, Nitish, absolutely right. Absolutely right. The nuclear deal. Now we need to understand one more thing here, that, now listen to it very carefully. In fact, a lot of people must be knowing about it. That US and China are not very good friends. The US is a capitalist economy and China is a communist economy. So they don't go along very well. So US has been thinking for a lot of time that the only country in the neighborhood of China that can counterbalance China is India. If you look at the periphery, the neighborhood of China, think of Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia, right? All these economies, they really cannot actually counterbalance the growing China. So US and a lot of other countries have been thinking that the only country that has the magic to do that would be India. And George Bush really believed in this particular theory, and that's why he made India an exception, right? And said that India, despite not signing CTBT and NPT, should be given the nuclear deal. Now CTBT and NPT, CTBT means you really cannot test your nuclear weapons, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, that means you really cannot test your nuclear weapons. And NPT means Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, that means you really cannot import or export nuclear technology if you haven't signed NPT. So that means if you have to import or export nuclear technology, you have to be signatory of both CTBT and NPT. So India not being a signatory of NPT and CTBT, still US made India an exception and gave us the nuclear deal. Okay. Now what do you think happened in India? Okay, Manmohan Singh was very much interested in signing the nuclear deal. George W. Bush was interested in signing the nuclear deal. Now, how does it help US in signing the nuclear deal? I'm repeating 2 pointers here now, very importantly. It helps them in grabbing huge markets in India, huge nuclear market in India. We are a growing economy and we have a huge demand for electricity, for power, and nuclear technology can be one such thing that can help us in meeting this kind of a demand. So it provides a huge market to the US. And number two, of course, the China factor comes in. If somebody asks you during the interviews, let's say, or you're discussing it during the GDs, so nuclear deal helps US primarily on the basis of business, and number two, counterbalancing China to a certain extent. And nobody would say that explicitly. Nobody will openly say that, okay, we are counterbalancing China by giving India nuclear deals. It's always implicit. I hope you can understand that. Okay. So do you think the Indian parliament accepted the nuclear deal that easily? Can I get a quick yes or a no? Obviously, a lot of people are saying no. Of course, that is what exactly happened. A lot of opposition parties created a ruckus in the parliament and Congress was not in majority. So in order to pass that particular bill in the parliament, Congress now understand this stupid issue, the beauty, or you say the ugly face of Indian democracy. Congress had to withdraw corruption cases against Mulayam Singh and Mayawati in order to get their support for the nuclear deal. And Shishir, you're absolutely right. SP saved the government. And SP saved the government just because, yes, the government went mellowed, soft on the corruption cases against them. Vignesh, I don't have the data in terms of what is the percentage, but I recently read that the target is that we should make it 10%. So that means we are definitely below 10%. So it has to be somewhere around 5% or maybe even less than that. So it's very small. Nitesh, maybe yes. So it has to be less than 5%. So maybe 3 to 4% only. Okay. So the opposition created a ruckus, but anyhow, I mean, they got the support of a couple of parties. But the issue now is that the Indian Parliament then came up with a new law that is called the Nuclear Liability Act. And according to this particular law, it states that if there is any disaster in the nuclear plants, the supplier will be responsible for the compensation. And the US is absolutely against it. US says, I mean, there's no international law like this, and India's just come up with its own law, and they don't accept this. So that is the biggest bone of contention between India and US right now. So if you talk about the present thing, the present status of India and US, so let's quickly write on a couple of pointers. Number one, the nuclear issue is stuck because of the Nuclear Liability Act. Number two, the situation of Pakistan is another irritant because India wants US to declare Pakistan to be a terrorist country, or India wants, I mean, US to actually do something about Pakistan. I mean, when it comes to handling terrorists, and US has not been openly challenging Pakistan on this particular front. So that is number two. Number three, then are very small issues like the issue of outsourcing, wherein US says that they will tax their companies who are outsourcing a lot to India. And then another very, very small point of what really happened with the Indian diplomat last year. So it's no more in news right now, so we can always ignore it. That's not a big issue. So if we have to sum it up, yes, the relationship is getting better. And if we're able to sign the nuclear deal when Obama is coming to India on 26th of January for the Republic Day celebrations. So yes, the relationship can move forward, right? So nuclear deal, number two, Pakistan, and number three, the issue of outsourcing, but that's also not very huge. So we can talk about two things here. All right. So I think more or less we're done with US. And of course, I've started with the US only because Obama is visiting on 26th. And of course, that coincides with a lot of interviews happening around. So a lot of people can ask you about a couple of things around. Obviously, business, that's what I'm saying. Business is a huge issue between India and US, right? So nuclear is a part of the business. So you can make it general. All right. Let's quickly move on to what? Let's go to European Union. India and European Union. India and European Union, of course, there are not many issues. The only thing that we need to understand is that India and European Union are planning to sign an FTA, free trade agreement. India and European Union are planning to sign an FTA, free trade agreement. I hope you understand what is an FTA. And this FTA is in its final phase. So negotiations are on, and anytime soon we can sign this FTA with European Union. I think that is the most important thing that we need to know about our relationship with the European Union. There's nothing much about it. Unlike US, to which we are politically connected when it comes to, let's say, Pakistan or the China factor, European Union does not actually, is politically connected to India for that matter. European Union never uses a Pakistan card or it never uses China card, right? So we are only connected to European Union on the business front. Rajat, I'll just explain FTA. That is called Free Trade Agreement. Free Trade Agreement actually means that these two countries or two regions, right, they identify a couple of products or a couple of, let's say, businesses, right, wherein the import duties are absolutely negligible. You make import duties very, very less so that you're having almost kind of a free trade with the other country. So that is an FTA. And I'm repeating, the FTA with the European Union is in its final phases. Alright, now let's quickly come on to what? Of course, there's no point discussing South America. It's not very important that phase. Africa we cannot discuss. If you go to the southern hemisphere, then it's only Australia. And with Australia, you can quickly write down that we have signed an FTA with them. That is number one. Sorry, not an FTA. We have signed a nuclear deal with them. With Australia, we have signed a nuclear deal. Nitesh, India is reluctant to sign FTA with whom are you talking about? And Varun, yes, we have signed a nuclear deal with Australia because Australia has huge uranium reserves. And of course, Australia is able to sign a nuclear deal with India despite India not signing CTBT and NPT is because US started the trend. and all the US allies will now be signing the nuclear deals with India. Nitesh, what you're asking is a totally different topic. It's more of opening like a hyperlink here. So let's not get into that. That's another topic. That's a very different issue. Alright. So we're done with 3 parts of the world. US, European Union, Australia. Australia, there's nothing more we can talk about in terms of, no political connections. It's only that there are a lot of Indians staying in Australia, but nothing much. We are obviously expecting more Australian investments in India. That's also always there. But there's nothing much we can discuss out. Now, another factor is, another country that we can discuss is Russia. Yes, Varun, the Adani deal. Yes, absolutely. Adani has got like a project in Australia, a huge project in Australia. And some Australian companies are actually investing in India, and they were present in the Pravasi Divas in Gujarat. So let's go to European Union's, let's go to Russia now. Now for Russia, we need to understand it has been an old friend, a very good friend. But it's more like two people married for a lot of years, and after 40-50 years of their marriage, they're getting into extramarital affairs. Now, India getting into an extramarital with the enemies of Russia, and Russia getting into an extramarital with the enemies of India. Now, India getting an extramarital with the enemies of Russia, for example, USA. For example, Western Europe. Absolutely. And Russia getting into the extramaritals with the enemies of India, for example. I won't say Pakistan, but it's actually China. Still, Pakistan and Russia are not very good friends, but China and Russia have overcome the differences and they're becoming very good friends now. But one of the newspaper articles said it very beautifully that India and Russia are trying to rediscover their lost love. Nikhil, I'm not getting your question. What are you saying? Both communists, that's why? What do you mean by both communist? Which both countries are you talking about? China and Russia? No. Russia is a communist nation. Russia is not a capitalist nation. No. China and Russia had a lot of issues on their borders. They had huge border clashes. Alright. So now, when I say that Russia and India are rediscovering their relationship or their lost love, yes, they've been trying to do that. But recently, if you know about Russia attacking Ukraine and taking away Crimea, so out of that particular conflict, European Union and a lot of other countries have put economic sanctions on Russia. And that's why Russia is looking for new markets. And one of the biggest markets Russia obviously will get are in China and India. And recently the Russian president was in India, and India and Russia, they've signed deals worth 100 billion US dollars. You can actually note down this particular number, this amount. This is huge. India and Russia have signed deals worth 100 billion US dollars. Nitesh, you're absolutely right. Russia is tilting towards China because of the sanctions from the Western world. But otherwise also Russia and China have been communist nations, so they are good friends. They can become good friends because both follow communism. Okay, I hope you people are able to understand what we're discussing here. Can I get quick yeses from you people? Alright, cool. Now, Russia is done. So now let's come to Asia. That is the most important thing. Rajat, when we talk about India-Russia deals of worth 100 billion US dollars, that will include so many things, right? Russia investing in India, or maybe the defense deals, or deals in pharmaceutical, energy, IT, so many things happening, right? Alright, now let's quickly talk about Asia. I'm starting on with Asia, and in Asia, I'm starting on with Indian subcontinent. So let's quickly start from Indian subcontinent. Indian subcontinent, first of all, you need to understand that this particular part of the world is actually known as SAARC, SAARC, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, that is SAARC. And one more thing that we need to understand is that we Indians are South Asians. We are not Southeast Asians. A lot of us confuse that we are Southeast Asians. We are South Asians. So South Asia is nothing but Indian subcontinent. And the very first country I'm picking up from the Indian subcontinent that we have to discuss is Pakistan. And let's quickly write down the issues with Pakistan. Let's quickly do that. Number one, border. We have a border conflict with Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir. Now let me quickly test your knowledge. Do we have any other border conflict with Pakistan apart from Jammu and Kashmir? I'm talking about border conflict, Shashir, not water conflict. I'm talking about border conflict. And okay, Shashir is saying Gujarat, and it's absolutely right. We have a small area on the Gujarat-Sindh borders that is called as Sir Creek. Sir Creek. Sir is S-I-R and Creek is C-R-E-E-K. Sorry, S-I-R. Okay. So we have this border conflict in Sir Creek area, and it's a marshy land, and it was not divided at the time of partition. And India and Pakistan, sometimes they start talking about that before settling Kashmir, let's settle Sir Creek because it's a smaller territory and easier territory to settle. And there have been a couple of murmurs in the past wherein Manmohan Singh wanted to settle this issue with Pakistan. But then Modi, being the CM of Gujarat, actually raised a hue and cry and said that the central government, the Manmohan Singh government, is planning to give away a part of Gujarat to Pakistan. It's absolutely stupid, in fact. Marut, we have a PPT, but it is not in that detail. Is there any issue if I am not using this PPT? Yes, the PPT is there, but I'm not using it right now. Okay. Okay guys, I think it's important to understand that I'm not giving you a lot of information about SAARC, when it was formed, how many members are there. Do you think you can handle it yourself? Because if I start talking about all those things, we'll not be able to cover up the viewpoints. And I think more than the facts here, the viewpoints are more important. Right, okay. So with Pakistan, I'm repeating two issues. Number one, Jammu and Kashmir, and number two, Sir Creek. Another big issue with Pakistan apart from this is water sharing agreement. Okay, now let's quickly understand this particular point, that we have a water sharing agreement with Pakistan that is called as Indus Water Treaty. And in the Indus Water Treaty, in the Indus Water System, there are 6 rivers, and let's quickly write down the name of the rivers. Number 1, Satluj. Number 2, Byas, Ravi. Satluj, Byas, Ravi. Now these 3 rivers flow through Indian Punjab. And then there are 3 more rivers that flow through Jammu and Kashmir. They are Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. Now, according to the Indus Water Treaty that was signed in 1960, The 3 rivers of Jammu and Kashmir were given to Pakistan, and the 3 rivers of Indian Punjab were kept for India. I hope you get that point. Now, according to this treaty, Pakistan should be using the waters of the 3 rivers of Jammu and Kashmir, and India should be using the 3 rivers of the rivers flowing through Punjab, Indian Punjab. So who is at loss here? Can you quickly tell me that? Who is at loss here? It's not India and Pakistan, but it is actually Jammu and Kashmir's loss. Please try to understand that the Indian side of Jammu and Kashmir, that means really cannot use its own waters because the waters should be flowing into the territories of Pakistan. And that is what the concern is. Jammu and Kashmir people still say that Indus Water Treaty was a injustice done to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I hope you get that. Yes, there are a lot of tributaries and distributaries, so everything goes to Pakistan. I'm talking of the major rivers here. Alright, now in 1960 we signed this agreement. Now what happens is, I need quick responses from you people. Now do you think India is right, or India can, build dams in Jammu and Kashmir? Should we build dams in Jammu and Kashmir? According to the Indus Water Treaty? Give me quick responses. But are we building dams? Are we building dams? Yes, we are building dams. Is Pakistan raising a hue and cry? Yes, it is raising a hue and cry. Pakistan is very much worried about what we are doing. But is India wrong in constructing those dams? The answer is no. Now the catch here is, now you need to understand, the catch is that India is making dams wherein we are not building reservoirs. According to the Indus Water Treaty, we cannot build reservoirs, but we can always build dams without the reservoirs. Because reservoirs means we can divert the water flow. And obviously we really cannot do that according to the treaty. But write on one particular word now. Riparian state. R-I-P-A-R-I-A-N. R-I-P-A-R-I-A-N. Riparian. Now a riparian state or a riparian territory is a territory through which the water body flows. Now out of India and Pakistan, India is an upper riparian state. That means the water originates here, the water bodies originate here. And Pakistan is a lower riparian state. So if we don't look at from that angle, from a Pakistani angle, but look at from a normal angle, a commonsensical angle, if the upper riparian is doing anything on the rivers, the lower riparian states will have a problem with that. Of course, yes. And Pakistan has raised these issues whenever India is building up dams in Jammu and Kashmir. And the two biggest of the controversies have been Kishan Ganga project and Baglihar project. Baglihar, B-A-G-L-I-H-A-R, Baglihar project. Pakistan complained to the international authorities such as the World Bank. World Bank visited India, Jammu and Kashmir, they saw the construction site and everything, and they favored India in terms of, they said India is not doing anything wrong, and they just instructed India to lower the heights of the dams, that's it. And the issue is still going on in terms of Pakistan raising hue and cry here and there. But otherwise it's settled. Okay, so number 1 is border, number 2 is water, number 3 issue with Pakistan is cross-border terrorism. We already know that. And there can be 3 sorts of cross-border terrorism that we can talk about. Number 1, terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. Number 2, terrorism in Punjab. And number 3, terrorism in the entire country in the form of Islamic terrorism that they try to instigate. But that is what India says. But Pakistan says that India is doing the same in Balochistan province of Pakistan. So Pakistan has also been charging India that India instigates terrorist activities in one of its provinces, that is Balochistan. Okay, so these are the issues with Pakistan. Let me get a couple of yeses if you're able to understand the Pakistan thing. Okay, now let's quickly go on to what? Let's discuss Sri Lanka. I'll discuss China-Pak collusion later. I'll discuss when we're discussing China. Marut, I am not a raw agent, so I really cannot comment on any truth in them. But yes, India keeps sending spies, like Pakistan sends spies to India. So I think more or less it should be right. I mean, India must have done something in the past. Yes, we are Indians, so it's good to say out of patriotism that we are a very great nation and we are not doing anything wrong there. But then, I mean, if you talk about Bangladesh, we were the ones who separated, who disintegrated Pakistan. So might be, I really cannot be sure about it, but India might be doing something there. Now let's quickly pick up the next country, that is Bangladesh. It's not about they're not sharing borders with India, but we can always send in our spies. It's very easy to send spies, no? It's not important to share borders. Pakistan is doing so much in India. For a state like Bihar or let's say Maharashtra, right, we don't share borders with Pakistan, but I mean, it's easy to send in people. That's not a difficult task. Okay, let's quickly discuss Bangladesh. I'm giving you a quick background on Bangladesh. Are we ready for Bangladesh? Alright. Now, Bangladesh is a very interesting thing. You'll get a lot of new information about it. Now, Bangladesh, we helped Bangladesh get independence from Pakistan. I think a lot of people would be knowing that Bangladesh was once a part of Pakistan only. It was known as East Pakistan. And India helped Bangladesh to get independence from Pakistan. Now, we need to understand that there are two political ideologies in Bangladesh. One political ideology is moderate, and this is known as Awami League, whose leader is Sheikh Hasina. I'm repeating, the moderate faction in Bangladesh is Awami League, and the leader is Sheikh Hasina, and obviously she is pro-India because she is moderate. Awami League. League. Yes, Nikhil, the current Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Absolutely. So I can say that moderates are in power right now in Bangladesh. Don't look at the PPT, right? I don't have a Bangladesh ka detailed PPT with me. So don't worry about it. Okay. Now the other faction in Bangladesh is Bangladesh Nationalist Party, and they are more like extremists. And the leader there is Khalida Zia. Okay, a quick question for you. Whom do you think we can draw an analogy in India? What is the Awami League of India, Congress or BJP? Who is the Awami League of India? Absolutely. Who is the BNP of India? The BJP. I hope you understand that particular point. Absolutely, Simrit. Simrit Bajwa is asking a question. They are under house arrest. Absolutely, yes. Now, what is happening is that Awami League is in power for the last almost, I think, 6 years now. And when they came to power, they executed a lot of BNP people because BNP gets a lot of support from extremist Muslim organizations. For example, we can talk about RSS, Bajrang Dal. They are the extremist wings of BJP. So BNP has a lot of extremist wings, right? For example, Jamaat. So you must be hearing this name in the media. So Awami League has executed a lot of BNP or the extremist wing leaders of BNP. Now the reason you can understand is very well. Use your common sense quickly and tell me which of these parties would have supported separation from Pakistan, Awami League or BNP? Which of these parties wanted independence from Pakistan? Use your common sense. Absolutely. So that means the BNP side, the other side was not very much interested in separation. And that's why they're anti-India as well. So that's a clear-cut signal that whenever Awami League is in power, the relationship is stronger with India, and whenever BNP is in power, the situation is not that strong, and moreover, we see a lot of increased terrorist activity in India, in the India's northeastern side. Because then the ISI network becomes strong. I'm repeating, when BNP is in power, relationships are not stronger. Number two, lot of increased terrorist activity in India's northeast because that shares borders with Bangladesh. So that is a quick background on Bangladesh. Now let's quickly discuss the issues. Simrit, maybe you're right on what you're saying as such. But right now I think it's very beneficial for Bangladesh to have a Awami League. Because if BNP comes in power, extremism grows there. And if extremism grows, right, it's a bad news for, let's say, this part of the world, right? Because obviously ISI network, Al-Qaeda network, right? So, I mean, you're right in what you're saying, but I mean, the other side is also true. Okay, so let's quickly discuss the issues that we have with Bangladesh. So, right on issue number one, we have a huge, stupid border conflict with Bangladesh. I'm using the word stupid because I'll just tell you what is the border conflict we have. Now, the border conflict with Bangladesh is named as enclaves. E-N-C-L-A-V-E, enclave. Okay, now what is an enclave? I'll give you an example. No, they're not 3 enclaves, there are many enclaves. I don't know the number myself, but there are many enclaves. Can you name the world's biggest enclave? Enclave is an area, for example, that is surrounded by somebody's territory. For example, I'll give you an example of Vatican City in Italy. The Vatican City is surrounded by Italy. So Vatican City is a country inside another country. I hope you get that. For example, let's take an example of a territory inside India that does not belong to India. So that is an enclave. Right? So close to the borders on both the sides, there are enclaves. India has its territory inside Bangladesh and Bangladesh has its territory inside India. And the stupidity increases when, for example, inside India you have Bangladesh, and inside Bangladesh you have India, and inside India then again you have Bangladesh. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people don't know about this particular stupid issue that we have with Bangladesh. So there has been a demand from a lot of quarters to exchange these enclaves. The territories of Bangladesh inside India should become a part of India, and the territories of India inside Bangladesh should become a part of Bangladesh. And the people, now remember, there are people staying in these enclaves. And the people who are stuck, they're close to 51,000 people stuck in these enclaves. They really cannot move out. Because moving out means crossing the international boundary. Now how stupid is that? So the people will be given a choice, right, where they want to go. They want to become Indians or they want to become Bangladeshis. Now we keep probably thinking that Manmohan Singh government did not do anything concrete in its tenure, but it's probably wrong to a certain extent because Manmohan Singh wanted to settle this issue with Bangladesh, and it was the BJP and other parties in the northeast who were against it, because they say that the amount of land that India will get after the exchange will be less as compared to what Bangladesh is going to get. But what amount are we talking about is a few thousand acres of land. And for a country like India, a massive country like India, a few thousand acres really doesn't make a lot of difference. And it won't even show on the map of India that there's some territory change has taken place. And when Modi has now recently said that we will exchange enclaves because it's a very important thing. Now, why it is important to exchange enclaves? Let me ask you this question. Why should we exchange enclaves? Why can't we go on like this? Because the people stuck inside the enclaves, they are a security threat. We really don't know the people inside the enclaves in Bangladesh must be working for ISI. Absolutely. So a lot of issues are such, right? So they are not living, obviously their condition is absolutely miserable. So Manmohan Singh wanted to settle it, but the opposition party did not allow Manmohan Singh to do that. In fact, Mamata Banerjee was absolutely against this. and Mamata Banerjee was refusing, right? So that means a very, very important viewpoint. It's very important to have a majority government in the center, because if the government is coalition, so you really cannot plan out your foreign policy effectively, because the regional parties, the opposition will raise a hue and cry, and you really cannot take a decision. So very important viewpoint on Bangladesh foreign policy getting affected, or Indian foreign policy towards Bangladesh getting affected because of coalition politics. Simrit, what you're saying is absolutely an extreme statement. I'm not saying that, but I'm just giving you some valid examples wherein these parties should have allowed Manmohan Singh to take an action. Now understand the internal politics of Bangladesh. Now let's say Awami League and BNP, they're fighting elections, and Awami League tell its people, okay, vote for us, we are good friends with India, and we will ask India to settle the border issue. Now let's say people vote for them and they come to power and they tell India, okay, please settle this particular issue, and India refuses. So obviously Awami League has to face that embarrassment. And in fact, I hope you're getting all this. And let's quickly write on number 2 issue with Bangladesh, that is water dispute. Water dispute. Okay, now when we talk about waters here, we share 53 rivers with Bangladesh. And quickly reply on my question, out of India and Bangladesh, which is a lower riparian state? We have just discussed riparian states. Quickly answer, which one is a lower riparian state? Lower riparian. Upper riparian means where the water body originates. Yes, Bangladesh is lower riparian. Okay. Do we have any water sharing agreement with Bangladesh? Yes or no? Okay, let me not ask you this question. We don't have any water sharing agreement with Bangladesh. We don't have any water sharing agreement. So that means if we don't have any water sharing agreement, and if India, being an upper riparian, is constructing any dam on the rivers, will Bangladesh have a problem? And is it right for Bangladesh to raise an issue? Yes, absolutely yes. We don't have a water sharing agreement. And if you're making any dams here, obviously they will raise a hue and cry, and they have been doing that in the past. And whose fault in not signing a water sharing agreement? India or Bangladesh? India, not Bangladesh, it's India. Manmohan Singh, again, I'm taking this example. Manmohan Singh wanted to share one of the rivers that is called as Teesta. Ye aapne naam suna hoga, you must have heard this name. Manmohan Singh wanted to settle Teesta, but Mamata Banerjee refused. Mamata Banerjee said, Bangladesh, West Bengal does not have enough waters to share with Bangladesh, and we refused it. So it has been India's fault in not signing an agreement with Bangladesh on water. I hope you're clear with this. Now quickly write on number 3, issue of terrorism. As you've already discussed, when BNP is in power, terrorist activity increases against India. Okay, what do you think? Who should be in power in Bangladesh? Who should rule Bangladesh? BNP or Awami League? If you look from Indian perspective, Awami League. So if we want Awami League to rule, so we should make sure that we address their concerns. And their concerns are border and water. Absolutely, both water and water. And we are not doing that. But do you think, is Bangladesh addressing India's concern? Has Awami League addressed India's concern when it comes to terrorist activity from the Bangladeshi soil against India? Yes, big time. When Sheikh Hasina came to power in 2009, the very first thing she ordered was flushing out the terrorists from the Bangladeshi soil operating against India. That was the very first thing she did. She has extended all the support to India when it comes to terrorism, and in return she asked for border and water settlement, and India kind of refused. So that's an embarrassing situation for them. So why they are doing it? Because they want good relations, and India is not able to respond. In fact, it's India who's not able to respond and not Bangladesh. So I think you're clear with Bangladesh, guys. Okay, now let's quickly move on to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, of course, you now very well understand. If you're following the news, that there has been an election. But before I discuss that particular thing, let's quickly discuss uh, the Tamil and Sinhala issue. There are two basic ethnicities staying in Sri Lanka. One is the Tamil, another is Sinhala. Tamils are Hindus, Sinhala are Buddhist. Tamils stay in the northern side of Sri Lanka, and Sinhala are in the southern side, and Sinhala are in majority. There were two different kingdoms before British actually acquired them, and when Britishers acquired them, they made it one country. When they made it one country, so obviously, when they left them in 1948, so what happened was elections were conducted, and who came to power in the elections after the elections were conducted, after British left? The community that was in majority, and that was Sinhala. Now, Sinhala people, what they did was they declared themselves to be the first class citizens, and they declared Tamils to be second class, and that led to the conflict. LTT was formed, and there was violence in Sri Lanka, went on for almost 40 years, ended in 2009. Now, India's dichotomy, India's paradoxical situation is, if we support Tamils, right, in the past, if we supported Tamils in the past, international community used to rebuke India that we are actually supporting terrorists. And if we actually supported the Sri Lankan government, then the Tamil community in India complained that we are not doing anything for the Tamils in Sri Lanka. Right. So India has been not able to control this particular situation, and we have been confused about it. But the latest happening is that there's a new president in Sri Lanka, and he's giving pro-Tamil ideas, and so that means he will be more pro-India. So still fingers crossed, and let's see what happens. I'll come back to Sri Lanka after I've discussed China, because there's some China angle here. I'll discuss it later. So are we clear with this Sri Lankan issue in brief? Okay, now let's quickly go to China, and that is the final country that we need to discuss. Okay, let's quickly write on the issues with China. Number one, border. There are two basic border conflicts with China. One is in Jammu and Kashmir. Which part of Jammu and Kashmir is with China, guys? Quickly tell me. Which part of Jammu and Kashmir is with China? No, it's not Ladakh, it's Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin, a lot of people don't know. When we draw Jammu and Kashmir, we make two crowns, right? Two angles, the protrusions of the crown. So the crown of the right hand side is with China. So that is Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin is with China. And the second territory that China claims is Arunachal Pradesh. Now China claims these two territories because China says that these were part of Tibet. I'll come to Sikkim later, Manu. So China claims that Aksai Chin and Arunachal were part of Tibet, and that's why they're part of China. And in the 62 war that we fought with China, China already occupied Aksai Chin, and they also occupied Arunachal Pradesh, but they returned Arunachal to India. And a lot of people say that China has been signaling India that let's agree on the fact that Aksai Chin is China's part and Arunachal is India's part. But India doesn't agree to this. Now there's another issue of Sikkim, and in fact a lot of people don't know that Sikkim was once an independent country and it became a part of India only in 1975. Sikkim became a part of India in 1975, and when Sikkim became a part of India, obviously China had concerns. Because China says that Sikkim was also a part of Tibet. So we sum it up. We have three border conflicts. One is Aksai Chin in Jammu and Kashmir, Arunachal Pradesh in the northeast, and Sikkim. But more or less, China has agreed on Sikkim being a part of India, like India has agreed on Tibet being a part of China. But still the conflict is on Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh. Just below Aksai Chin is Leh and Ladakh. So China keeps troubling India by entering into Leh and Ladakh. So Leh and Ladakh and Aksai Chin is almost one and the same thing because the entire area is controversial. Okay, issue number 2 with China is water. We have a water conflict with China. Now out of India and China, who's a lower riparian? Okay. Do we have a water sharing agreement with them? We don't have any water sharing agreement with China. And it's a situation absolutely similar to India and Bangladesh. We sharing Brahmaputra with them, absolutely. And a couple of more rivers that we share with China. And in the absence of any water sharing agreement, obviously India being a low riparian state has its own concerns. And it's an open secret now that China is making huge dams on the Brahmaputra. And India has told China to share information, share details. And China is giving almost the same reply that India has been given to Bangladesh in all these years. So the karma theory, if you look at it, India is reaping what it has sowed. In terms of what we did with Bangladesh, China is doing with us. Okay, another issue that we have with China is trade, right? Now the good factor with China is the only good factor, you can say a positive thing in the relationship is that we're having a huge trade with China despite a border conflict. Now the amount of trade that we're having with China is close to 70 billion US dollars, 70 billion US dollars trade we are doing with China. And the problem with the trade is that the trade deficit is very high. It is one-sided, absolutely. The trade deficit is as high as 30 billion. 30 billion is the trade deficit. That means China is exporting more to India as compared to India exporting to China. It's huge. Prateek, it's not 38. Exact figure is 32. But again, you can cross-check if you want. Alright. Now, the last topic that we need to cover quickly is that China is trying to take advantage of India's bad relationships with its own neighbors. So China is taking advantage. Now let's quickly look at it. China is interested in getting a permanent member status in SAARC. That is what we talked about. Now, India is obviously not interested in making China a permanent member of SAARC, but how many countries do you think will be favoring China's entry? What is that one country that will favor China? Of course, Pakistan, right? So, if we talk about China-Pakistan collusion, there are three things that we need to understand. Pakistan-China, number one collusion is on the front of nuclear technology. China has been giving nuclear technology to Pakistan, right on number one. Number two, China is making a port, is developing a port in Pakistan, and that is a huge concern for India because we really don't know on that port are the Chinese soldiers or those are Chinese workers. So I'm repeating, number one, nuclear technology. Number two, China developing a Pakistani port. And number three, I'm talking only with Pakistan, Nikhil. And number three, if you look at Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan occupied Kashmir and China occupied Kashmir, there's a landmass that connects both. That is known as Karakoram Highway. You'll have to look at the maps once you're done with the session. So China and Pakistan are building a highway there. And India is very much concerned. Manu, the name of the port is Gwadar that China is developing for Pakistan. Gwadar, Gwadar. Okay, now let's quickly talk about China and Bangladesh. Yes, it's near Karachi. Okay, in Bangladesh, which party gets close to China? BNP or Awami League? Of course, BNP. Name of the highway in Jammu and Kashmir is Karakoram. Karakoram is the name of the Himalayan range. We call it Karakoram Himalayas or Karakoram range. And on that particular name is the name of Karakoram highway. And they're making this particular highway there, right? So BNP obviously is slightly more pro-China. And if you talk about Sri Lanka, the president, the last president, Rajapakse, was more pro-China than it was more pro-India. In fact, come back to Bangladesh. Bangladesh there's a port by the name of Chittagong and it has already gone to China. China is already developing it. And then of course, who gave it to China? BNP. Okay, Sri Lanka, if you talk about it, there's a port already given to China. I really cannot name that port. The name is very complex. It's something like Hambantota. Hambantota. So Sri Lanka the Rajapakse government, in fact, what you can, yes, absolutely, Marut. Okay, now the situation was with Sri Lanka. As I said, I'll discuss Sri Lanka later when I'm discussing China. So whenever India raised the Tamil issue with China, with Sri Lanka was tilting towards China, or China was filling the gap. So Sri Lanka, in fact, you can say China was taking advantage of the Tamil issue here. I hope you're getting it, everybody. So India probably is taking a sigh of relief with the new president coming in because he's giving absolutely pro-India signals. Okay, are we clear with this particular thing? So in short, if I can sum it up, China has been taking advantage of India not having good relationships with its neighbors. But do you think is India doing the same with China in its neighborhood? Now China is not very friendly with its neighbors and India is taking advantage of that. Marut, the disadvantages would be, for example, in Sri Lanka, there was a media report that China has already installed or kept a couple of nuclear, I'm not really sure nuclear, but Navy submarines in the Sri Lankan ports. So that becomes an issue. It's not exactly a warship, but submarines are parked over there in the Sri Lankan ports. So that becomes a concern, security concern for India. Okay, so let's quickly talk about China's neighbors and India growing its relationships with them. The biggest of the Chinese enemy in its neighborhood is, give me quick answers, Japan, absolutely. And India and Japan are getting close, and India-Japan relations are number one, business. Yes, Nitish, it is called string of pearls only. I'm not using that term because it's not very popular these days. Okay, so India and Japan are getting close, and quickly write down India-Japan relationship, getting close on business front, on defense front, plus of course the China factor is there. Enemy's enemy is a friend. And we are planning an FTA with Japan as well. We are planning free trade agreement with Japan. Similarly, South Korea is not a very good friend with Japan, and we're developing relationship with South Korea as well. South Korea, we have already signed an FTA. We are developing defense ties and we're doing business with them. Similarly, you talk about Southeast Asia, entire Southeast Asia, that particular portion of the world is called as ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Neighbors, Nations. ASEAN, ASEAN. ASEAN stands for Association of Southeast Asian Neighbor Nations. And India and ASEAN are already doing an FTA. We have signed an FTA with ASEAN. Nikhil, UAE, Iran, Iraq will be discussed later. In fact, let's see if we get time. So ASEAN and India are becoming very good friends. And in ASEAN, there's a country, Vietnam. And Vietnam and China have a dispute over South China Sea. And Vietnam has invited India to explore petroleum and other natural reserves in the South China Sea, and China warned India not to enter the South China Sea, but India told very politely to China that you're doing the same in Kashmir. Yes, Rajat, ASEAN FTA was finalized in 2010. We are already doing that. I hope you're clear that India is also taking advantage of China's bad relationships with its own neighbors, as China is doing that with India's neighbors. I think we're almost done with this. When it comes to Middle East, you're talking about Iran, Iraq and everybody. In the Middle East, we can discuss two countries quickly. One is Iran and another is Israel, Palestine. But that will be too much detail. I think we will not be able to cover in this particular session. But if you're interested, you can just read on two countries there, Iran and Israel, Palestine, right? I think more or less we are done. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I hope you've got something out of the session and you'll be able to use it, right? Thank you.